So I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone. If they've been working and are law-abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. You have to pay back taxes, and you have to try to learn English, and you have to wait in line.
Is that illegal immigration is wrong, plain and simple. Until the American people are convinced that we will stop future flows of illegal immigration, we will make no progress on dealing with the millions of illegal immigrants who are here now and on rationalizing our system of legal immigration.
A few years later.
And I hate that he plays on the fact that most people, unless you've been through the immigration system, don't really understand how immigration works. But typically when I'm on the road and people talk to me about the price of food, one of the things that I ask them is, how many of your children are you raising to go and work on the farms? And I usually get absolutely zero hands. And I explain to them, this is why we don't demonize people that are actually coming to our country to help us out economically. If you want to better understand how it is that our food prices are so expensive, well, one of the reasons is that we don't have the labor that we need. I have talked to the farmers as someone that serves on the ag committee, or when we look at how he's demonized the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, we know that those business persons have come out and said, no, they helped us out. We needed that labor. So we need to be smart about immigration. We obviously need to be safe. And there was a bipartisan bill that could have been passed, but it was Donald Trump that decided that he wanted something to campaign on. Do you want somebody that is going to play games with you, or do you want somebody that is going to offer solutions regardless as to who is in the White House? And that is the blue team. We are solutions oriented.
All right, guys. So once again, we got to talk about the Democrat Party going back to their roots, okay? Especially when it comes to this issue of illegal immigration, okay? Because they started off as the party of slavery, hate, and bigotry, okay? This is the origin of the Democrat Party, right? And they claim that they've changed, okay? We're not the same party, okay? Believe us when we tell you that. Except fast forward, 200, 300 years, it seems as if they are actually the same party, okay, because they are still the party of hate and bigotry, just this time towards whites, okay, and also on top of that, they seem to be obsessed with slave labor, just this time in the form of illegal immigration, because this is how they justify having an open border, okay? This is why Kamala Harris does not regret having an open border, despite the fact that she admitted during the CNN town hall that she could have did something about it, while also at the same time blaming Trump for shooting down the bipartisan piece of legislation that would not have closed the border, okay? But when asked, hey, you could have done something about it before. We know you could have, because you implemented executive orders and you made a deal with Mexico to hold the illegals because you want to win an election. Do you regret not doing that beforehand? She says no, right? We did the right thing, okay? And the right thing in the minds of Democrats is to allow illegals into the country to pick our cotton, right? Again, this is what they're saying out loud. This is what they're saying. This is how they justify it, okay? We need the labor, okay? So do not let these people tell you that they're not the same Democrat Party of the past, because they are the same Democrat Party, okay? They just disguise it in clever ways, right? But again, when you actually cut through their BS, you can see that, again, they're still the party of hate and bigotry, and they're still a party of slave labor, okay? That is what's happening. And they don't give a damn about the negative consequences of illegal immigration at all. They are hell-bent on allowing illegals into the country. This is why you should not believe Kamala Harris and her word salads when she tries to claim that she's actually going to secure the border. She's not going to, because the border was left open on purpose, okay? She could have did it before, but she just chose not to. And if she's elected, best believe she's going to open it back up. The floodgates going to open. Illegals are going to pour into the country en masse like we've never seen before, because this is what Democrats want, okay? Ultimately, they understand that these illegals are future Democrat Party voters. They're going to grant amnesty across the board. That is the plan, okay? Now, for the most part, Kamala Harris, when asked to articulate any plan, she gives word salads, okay? I mean, we know what the plan is because we pay attention to their actions, okay? But you're not going to get the real plan from Kamala Harris because she doesn't know how to explain a plan, okay? Which is part of the reason why she is struggling when it comes to this issue of illegal immigration, right? And also why she's struggling in general. And when you compare this to the other side of the aisle, Trump and JD Vance, the difference is clear in regards to track record, right? As in the first Trump administration had the border much more secure than it is today, okay? And Trump and JD Vance are promising mass deportations, okay? They are promising to do things that actually will fix the issue, and they're not doing it with word salads, okay? Which is what JD Vance did last night at a town hall with NewsNation, okay? I want you guys to notice the difference between how Kamala Harris talked about the issues versus how JD Vance talks about the issues. And when he's asked a question, he actually answers the question in a way that makes sense, is articulate, and actually gets to the heart of the core issues that the American people have when it comes to illegal immigration, which is not cheap labor, right? But about all the negative externalities that comes along with illegal immigration. Like, for example, listen to JD Vance answer this question from Chris Cuomo about whether or not he's going to actually go after the drug cartels, because that's a part of the problem when it comes to illegal immigration. And JD Vance gives a direct answer, which is something that we rarely hear from politicians. Take a look.
Dangerous than anything that has ever been in this country. We've got to give people those second chances, but we're not going to do it without good border enforcement. And that's what I really want us to get back to. And by the way, again, that's not just a proposal from Donald Trump. When he was president, we had the lowest number of illegal border crossings in a very long time. Through simple, common sense law enforcement, we just have to do it again.
So you have an underweighted criminality among immigrants in general, overweighted in terms of the organized crime activity.
Correct.
So why shouldn't the cell not be that they're poisoning our blood, which we hear from Trump on a regular basis, but that the cartels should be treated like the criminal organizations they are? Some argue terrorist organizations. So it's not all the immigrants, it's targeting. And the cartels need to be targeted. Would your administration be in favor of targeting those cartels differently, even as terrorists?
100%. And actually, President Trump, and he's been attacked in some ways by the media, but I don't understand this because, again, I'm biased, but I think it's one of the most common sense proposals is if we're going to use the U.S. military against criminal organizations in the Middle East, why wouldn't we use it against a criminal organization that's on our southern border that's killing almost 100,000 of our citizens every single year? Absolutely, I think we should do that. Now you're right, Chris. I want to be clear here. I do not think that all or most illegal immigrants are violent criminals. I think they should go through the proper channels. I think that doesn't mean they have the right to be in our country, but we have let in far too many illegal immigrant criminals, too many criminal gangs because of what we've been doing with our border policy for the last 3.5 years. I mean, one other thing that I've been really shocked by, this was happened a couple of years ago. So this data is a couple of years old. I was sitting next to a DEA agent on an airplane, and I asked him, this he fights the Mexican drug cartels. And I asked him to sort of give me an update on what's going on. And this was probably in late 2022. He said the cartels have gone from making $1 billion a year when Donald Trump was president to making $14 billion per year in 2022. And it's probably even higher now than it was then. Well, think about all of the weapons. Think about all of the criminal activity that they're funding because they're getting rich, and they're getting rich because of our own leadership. We could do so much better. We got to get away from more of the same border policy under Kamala Harris.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. When asked a direct question about what he's going to do to deal with the drug cartels, is he going to use the military at the border to go after them? The answer to the question is yes, right? It's not a word salad, okay? When Kamala Harris is asked about whether or not she supports building more of the border wall, it's word salad. She can't tell you, okay? She can't tell you that even though she claims she supports the bill that is going to allocate more funding towards building the border wall, when asked directly about support for the border wall, it's word salad. When JD Vance is asked the question, it's not word salad. It is an answer that is direct, okay, to the point, okay, and also very informative, okay? Clearly, he has a strong grasp on the issues. This is not something I can say about Kamala Harris. The difference is clear. Another example, look at JD Vance answer the question about housing and how we're going to bring down the cost of housing and the issue when it comes to housing. Take a look.
Housing prices are once again pricing millions of Americans out of the market. The new data shows that the problem's only getting worse. We have dealt with both campaigns giving pieces of ideas. Criticism of your campaign is its concepts of ideas. What specifically can you tell the people at home and in this room you could do as vice president with President Trump to make housing prices decrease?
Yeah. But let me think, when we talk about housing, it's useful to talk about two separate sides of the housing problem. There's a supply issue and there's a demand issue. Okay. So the supply issue is we don't build enough houses for the people that we have in the United States of America. And there are complicated reasons why we don't do that, right? One is that energy prices are too high. So if we drill, baby drill, open up America's energy markets to lower the cost of energy, then we make it easier to build houses. There's also a lot of stuff that we do on the regulatory side, both at the state and the federal level, to make it harder to build homes. Organizations like NEPA, which make it harder for the United States to build. And I always remind people that our ancestors went to the moon with pocket calculators and slide rulers, and now our government makes it way too hard to build the homes that we need. Now, that's the supply side of it. I think most people actually agree with that. I think if you ask most Democrats, they'd probably agree with what I just said. What I'm going to say about the demand problem is a little bit more controversial, but I think it's just as important, which is that when you let 25 million illegal aliens, and I think that's the number that we have in our country right now, when you let those folks in your country at the level that we have, well, you got to put them somewhere, right? They have to live somewhere. And that means that those are homes that aren't going to American citizens. In other words, if you take a neighborhood and you add hundreds, or you take a city and you add tens of thousands, or you take a country and you add 25 million people competing against Americans for scarce homes, that's going to drive the cost of housing through the roof, too. And there's no coincidence that when we've seen under Kamala Harris's open border, the highest levels of immigration, illegal immigration in our country, basically in our history, that's coincided with the highest levels of house price increases that we've seen in our country in a very long time. I think in Michigan, the number's about 50%. Rents and housing prices have gone up by 50%. We could do a lot better, but simply we got to build more houses, and we got to make sure those houses go to American citizens, people who have the legal right to be here. Unfortunately, what we've seen under present leadership, under Kamala Harris's leadership, is we've had a lot of investment in things like electric vehicles manufactured in China, not nearly enough investment in the types of auto jobs that have actually powered the Michigan economy for the last nearly 100 years, right? So you got to create better jobs. You're absolutely right about that. You mentioned mortgage interest rates, and that's something I should have talked about but didn't in the original answer. Mortgage rates are so high because inflation is so high, right? Mortgage rates track with the broader inflation. So when you talk about Kamala Harris casting the deciding vote on trillions of dollars of new spending, when you talk about going to war against American energy, which makes everything more expensive, when you drive up prices, you do drive up interest rates. And
now I want you to listen to this answer that JD Vance gives when confronted by a farmer on what they're going to do about the rising cost of doing business as a farmer here in the United States of America. Listen to his answer and the solutions that he gives. Take a look.
All right, got another question from the audience. Robert, on rising costs, but for farmers.
Sure. Hey, Robert.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate the opportunity. I'm a fourth-generation farmer. In fact, we sell our produce right across the street here at the Eastern Market. How will your administration, after seeing what we went through after COVID and the important respect to domestic food production, help the American farmer to survive the increasing inflationary costs of doing business in global competition?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question, Robert. And, you know, one thing you probably know, Robert, because you're a farmer, but a lot of people don't realize, and this is maybe the scariest statistic of the last few years, is that America just last year became a net importer of food. What that means is that we grow less food than our people consume, which makes us reliant on other people for the very food that we feed our children. I think that's very, very dangerous. And part of the reason is because we've made it so hard on our farmers. Now, when I talk to farmers, and, you know, Ohio, I represent the state of Ohio. Don't hold it against me, Michigan. But I talk to a lot of farmers in the state of Ohio because we've got a lot of them. I know Michigan has a lot of farmers, too. You know, one of the things that I hear is that between natural gas prices, because natural gas is a big part of the fertilizer that farmers use, between diesel costs, between gasoline costs, the cost of energy has made it really, really hard for our farmers to actually do what they do and grow the food that we need. So we got to bring down energy costs to make it more affordable for farmers to do what they do. The other thing is that we got to make sure that foreign competitors aren't flooding our markets with cheap agricultural products that destroy, that destroy the wages and the livelihoods of farmers. But again, it makes us more reliant on countries that ultimately don't like us. This is something we got to be very, very worried about. What we learned, you mentioned this, I think, Chris, during COVID, is that we became so dependent on foreign countries for the supply chains, right? We couldn't get like hospital masks and hospital gowns in the midst of a pandemic because China made a lot of that stuff. Well, if we're worried about manufactured goods, how much worse is it to rely on other countries for the very food that we provide to our families? We've got to go in the other direction and cut down on agricultural dumping. One of the ways you do this, and this is a big difference between President Trump and Kamala Harris, is Kamala Harris has really criticized the idea of using tariffs. President Trump has said, rightfully in my view, obviously I'm a little biased, but that unless you're willing to use tariffs to go after countries that are manipulating our own markets, whether it's food, energy, or manufactured goods, you're going to be giving up on American productive workers. We can't do that. We've got to protect our farms, protect our manufacturers, make more of our own stuff, grow more of our own food. And that's fundamentally the President Trump approach to these things.
Yeah, so regardless of whether or not you agree or disagree with J.D. Vance's answers, it is very refreshing to see a politician actually answer the question, right? It's not word salad did but Kamala Harris, right? I mean, Kamala Harris's go-to is word salad. I'm not going to answer the question, but Trump, right? That's what she does. J.D. Vance, he answers the question and he doesn't go to, well, but Kamala Harris. Now, if he, talks about Kamala Harris, he's going to talk specifically about her policies and why her policies were wrong, okay? Or how her policies, Joe Biden's policies, played into the problem getting worse. He's not calling her a fascist. He's not insulting her. He's not, saying a bunch of things that, again, quite honestly, don't have anything to do with the answer to the question. He is tying in his criticisms of Kamala Harris directly with the problem, okay, that is presented and how he's going to do something different than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris when it comes to their solution. This is what you want out of a presidential candidate, guys. Okay? Kamala Harris nor Tim Walz can do what J.D. Vance just did. They can't, right? They can't at all. They can't even come close. So this is the difference. This is the difference. And this is why you're seeing Trump and his team, his campaign skyrocket, particularly after that Tim Walz, J.D. Vance debate, because the American people got to see J.D. Vance side by side with Tim Walz, and they saw somebody that is articulate, intelligent, actually solution-oriented, knows what the hell he's talking about, versus a self-described goofball who literally lies about everything, including how he had his kids, right? And he thinks that, hey, yeah, elect me as vice president, right? I'm one heartbeat away from becoming commander-in-chief behind a woman that's clearly incompetent, has a terrible track record, and again, he's a goofball, emotional man, right? That is the pitch that he gave to the American people. On the other side of the aisle, you have a businessman with a proven track record of success and a protege who clearly is smart, right? He's clearly intelligent. He's very articulate. He understands the problems and the solutions that we need to drive the country forward, right? And he can present them in a way that's very digestible for the average American. The choice is clear. The choice is extremely clear. And I think that VP debate is also part of the reason why Kamala is tanking and Trump is skyrocketing, because people were able to see the difference, okay? I think that J.D. Vance has turned out to be everything that the mainstream liberal media claimed that Tim Walz was going to be for Kamala Harris. J.D. Vance is actually going on multiple podcasts that are targeting men and actually speaking to young men, okay, and presenting himself in a way that is the exact opposite of what the media said. They said that J.D. Vance was weird, right? J.D. Vance is not weird. This guy, in my opinion, he represents the American dream. He came from nothing, went to Ivy League school, now he's a politician, and almost about to become vice president of the United States. That is the American dream, okay? And Democrats mocked that, right? They mocked J.D. Vance's upbringing, okay? This is what they did. While at the same time, again, they have Tim Walz, Tim Sugar Walz, who, for whatever reason, he's not going on Joe Rogan. He's not going on Theo Von's show. He's not doing these podcasts and actually speaking to these men in the same way that J.D. Vance is doing. Well, why is that? It's because Tim Walz doesn't appeal to men with normal testosterone levels, right? He doesn't, okay? He appeals to the feminine man that liberal women claim they want out of a man, right? That's who he appeals to, which is a minority of men, Okay. And I really do think that JD Vance is helping Trump gain votes, right? It's something that's rare in politics where people say that the VP actually is helping out the president in regards to gaining votes, right? You don't want your VP to hurt you, okay, at the very least. And in a good scenario, your VP is actually helping you get votes. I really do believe that JD Vance is helping Trump. I think he balances out Trump in ways that Tim Walz is failing to do for Kamala Harris. And town halls like this, you can clearly see the difference. You can clearly see the difference. I am very comfortable if something happens to Trump, Lord forbid, okay, while he's in the White House, I am very comfortable with having JD Vance take over, okay? But I cannot say the same about Kamala Harris, okay? Couldn't say the same about Kamala Harris. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.